starting to record. I just want to, before I start the class, I want to dedicate this class to the 45 souls that that left us on Friday in a really, really tragic way. It's been very, very hard for me, surprisingly. And just keep it in that cup. It's been, sorry, I don't know how I can see things and focus. I have to focus. No, it's been very hard. I'm saying it as after a few days of pondering, of thinking about it. Today I'm able to talk about it. I couldn't talk about it before. It for some reason it was so painful, the story, because I don't know if there's a reason because, but especially the fact that it wasn't an outside how do you call it, someone from the outside coming and hurting, like a terrorist attack or whatever it was. I think that was the most painful. It was painful because it was on Lag BaOmer, which is one of my favorite holidays, where there's so much joy, where Shimon Bar Yochai saved so many lives, where we learned, I read so much about him. I feel that connection to him. Yeah. And it was just hard to hear that happen in his resting place, when people came to visit him and to rejoice because he told us to rejoice. So this class is dedicated to him, which the Tanya, in an indirect way, comes from the book, the Zohar, which Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote, was the first book of the mysticals of the Torah, and eventually brought down to Chassidus and Tanya, which is brought down to our level for us to be able to understand, regular people to understand and apply it in our lives. So it is very, very related. Okay, so let's get into the class. So I'm just going to review. We started chapter 9, which is a new category. I don't know if category is the right word. It's the first 8 chapters just spoke about the souls, the 2 souls, and how they are built, how they function, their functions, their clothing. And now chapter 9 begins with the location of the souls, where both souls are located and how they express themselves in our body, how they fight over our body, each one trying to become king over our body, and each one can't stand the other. Okay? Why can't they stand the other? Why can't they just live both in peace in the body? Do you remember that? Because the godly soul is so holy and perfect that anything that's unholy and imperfect makes it's very sensitive to things that are not kedusha. It's so holy, so sensitive, so refined that it can't handle and it can't stand anything that's not refined. The animal soul, on the other hand, is so animal, like the name is so animalistic, is so egocentric, that is threatened by the godly soul. So both of them are constantly fighting over each other, over the body, over controlling and taking full control over the clothing of the body, the thoughts, speech, and action, and eventually the emotions of the body. Okay, so we're going to go, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go to the exercise, the paper that I made, so it could be a bit more visual. And I just thought it was interesting. I actually took a picture of the heart, so we can see it better. Let me just see full screen. Okay. Let me zoom in to the heart. Do you see the heart? Yeah, you can take the Tanya, yeah, for sure. Let me zoom in. Okay, we're just gonna. Anyway, so where is Mekom Mishkan Nefesh Abamis? Where does the animal soul reside? Okay, do you see the heart over here?
Yeah.
You have the right ventricle, which is red, and the left ventricle, which is blue, which is connected to the oxygen, to the lungs. So where does the animal soul reside?
In the left ventricle.
Exactly. In the left ventricle, where the blood is pumped, okay, and where the blood is then brought all over the body until the brain. That is where the animal soul resides. And under, you write ki hadam hu hanefesh. The translation of that is because blood is the soul. Okay, there's a pasuk in the Torah that says ki hadam hu hanefesh. I don't think it's in the Torah. I have to find out what the source is of that pasuk. But the blood is the soul. What soul is this talking about? The animal soul. The animal soul's life source is through the blood. And just like the blood starts off in the heart, the animal soul, all the emotions of the animal soul starts off in the heart. And then eventually it goes all over the body, going up to the brain. So any emotion, negative emotion like anger, like sadness, like ego, starts off in the heart, and that's how it can affect your ego. Your anger can actually affect your physical body, your clothing, your speech, your action, your thoughts, because it goes through the whole body, going up to the brain and affecting the brain too. Okay? So when your animal soul is in control, it takes over the whole body. And all your thoughts, speech, and action will be egocentric. All your and all your negative emotions will be in full control and totally controlling your actions and your speech and your thoughts. Even your intellect is going to think of ways to get to what emotion you feel. So it works the opposite than the nefesh elokit. Okay? So the second one, Mishkan Nefesh Elokit Hu B'Mochin Shebarash. Where is the godly soul located? Hu B'Mochin Shebarash. He's in the
right,
in the brain. In the brain. Okay, so we're first going to start with the brain. I put a picture of the brain. I thought it was interesting that the brain has 3 parts to it, and I don't know if it works like that, but I wonder if it represents the Chachma, Bina, and Das. You know, I wonder if that's how it works. But it seems it works so well together, the Tanya, and the way the body is built, it's crazy. So the godly soul is located in the brain. It's very important to understand that it's located in the brain because you cannot feel connected if you don't use your intellect. Okay, as opposed to your animal soul where you feel, where you have the emotions before that. For the godly soul, you have to learn, you have to study, you have to really go through Chachma, Bina, and Das, through your 3 intellectual faculties in order to be able to understand God and to connect and to feel that love and connection for God. Okay? Now, the godly soul can not only be located in the brain, it also needs a place in the heart. It has two headquarters, exactly. So it also, the second place, Lev Chacham Lemino, from a phrase also somewhere in the Talmud, I believe, Lev Chacham Lemino, it says that the heart of the wise man is on his right side. Okay, and like you see, the right side doesn't really have blood. The blood goes there to get oxygenated, and the oxygen is something more abstract. The godly soul is something more abstract, more refined. So the blood over there is more refined. Okay, it's very, very interesting. I was listening to a class that they had a doctor there, and he said that actually the right ventricle, the blood is different than on the left.
Oh, really?
It is more refined. So it's you know, it really parallels to our nefesh elokit and our nefesh abamit. And this brings me to the a different big parallel. When I mean a parallel, it's actually everything in this world has parallels. Everything that happens in this world happens in our little world, which is our body. Okay, so
What is abodes?
abode is a house. Okay, it has a second. What does a godly soul? Why does a godly soul have two abodes? That's a question, but we'll go to that after. Okay,
Yeah.
so again, I'm going to repeat everything in the world, in the macrocosm, in the bigger picture, exist in the microcosm. Okay.
Yeah.
In the world, we see, well, the first story that was parallel to the souls is the story of Yaakov and Esav. Do you remember that story of Yaakov and Esav? So Yitzhak and Rivka have two children. Rivka was pregnant. And she didn't know she had, they didn't have any, ultrasounds then. She didn't know she had twins, but she knew that whenever she would walk in a place where they served idols, the baby would kick and get all excited. And every time she would pass by a holy place, which was the learning where they learned Torah, there was one place called Shem, where Shem would teach Torah there to the people. The baby would get excited. She was so confused. She's like, is this what's wrong with this baby? Sometimes he's excited about idols and sometimes he's excited about Torah. This is not normal. So she went to Shem, actually, who was somehow her great-great-grandfather, somehow related to her, and also a holy person. And she told him what happened. And he told her, you have two nations inside of you. You have two babies, two nations. One nation is going to be, one baby is going to be wild and more oriented towards hunting and idol worshiping. And one baby is going to be more refined and more geared towards Torah learning. And out of these two babies, the two nations will come. The two nations, which is the Jewish nation, and then out of Esav came all the, what do they call it? Esav is the Christians, the Eastern, the non-Jews more from the Christian side. And this macrocosm of Esav and Yaakov really represents the two souls. When Yaakov was born, Esav came out first, and then Yaakov. And that represents the soul. When a child is born, he first has his egocentric animal soul. And when Esav and Yaakov turned 13, I believe, Yaakov bought over the rights of being a firstborn from Esav, so he became the firstborn. Because really, in reality, Yaakov was the firstborn. He was conceived first. But Esav came out first, so after, by his bar mitzvah, he bought over his rights to be firstborn, and he got the bracha from his father, the firstborn bracha. And that represents the neshama, the second soul, that at bar and bas mitzvah, we receive, because our mind, our intellect, can be finally aware. Remember, where does the godly soul start? It starts in our intellect. At 12 years old, at 13-year-old for a boy, 12 for a girl, that's when they are able to start learning things that are abstract, things that are more godly, things that are not concrete. And that's why that they're responsible for the mitzvot, because finally their godly soul can be expressed and used. So, and the struggle between Yaakov and Esav, since they were born, is still exists today. The fight between the animal soul and the godly soul is a struggle that's ongoing. It's always going to happen until Mashiach comes, when the animal soul is going to be, the Esav is going to be able to recognize God. The animal soul is going to be completely submissive to the God, surrendered to the godly soul, and all its animalistic emotions, soul powers are going to be used for holy and godly purposes. So having struggles in life, those struggles, that fight, is normal and it's healthy. It's part of the human nature. Okay, of course, Tzaddikim are able to overcome that struggle because they don't have their animal soul, but Tzaddikim are here to guide us and to help us be able to fight this animal soul. But it's a struggle that exists and that will exist until Mashiach comes. And so too for the world, the macrocosm, the animal soul and the godly soul in the world is that constant struggle between the Torah way, the Torah views, and the world views. And of course, we see that in the world, the world views are coming first. All the sciences, everything that was the science, everything that came from the, how do they call it? There's a name for people that come from Esav, and I can't find the name. I think it's all the studies. What are they? There's but what's the origin in the English term? Maybe Cheryl, maybe you know?
Sorry, what was the question?
What do we call all the knowledge we have, all the sciences, all the medicine, everything we have come from? There's a name to it. What's their origin? Maybe Eastern European? What?
I would say study and experimentation. I don't know that there's
no, but so all the Greeks, all that anyways, all that, because it's hard to say what is Esav, but it's basically the common knowledge that most people have today, okay? So that I would call Esav. After exactly, I have to find that. I know there's a word to it and I can't find it. And there's a specific, but all that knowledge is the Esav, the world, the thing that came first, and the Torah, which was originally the first thing that was in God's mind, doesn't seem so powerful today, but when Mashiach comes, that's going to be the world's godly soul that's going to take over the body, the world, and even the rest of the world will be able to appreciate it and to recognize it as being the firstborn and the surrendered completely to the godliness. Okay?
You were talking about the Torah's views versus the Torah's views. Is there anything to say about that?
So the Torah views and the world views, okay? Those are kind of represents like the godly soul and the animal soul, Esav and Yaakov, exactly. Okay? So it's that constant battle, okay? And the battle is going to exist until Mashiach comes, when one of them has to. You can't have, it says that truth, if it has 1% of non-truth, of lie, it's 100% a lie.
Okay.
So that's why godliness and animal soul, the godly soul and the animal soul can't coexist, because one of them is being denied. The minute one of them takes over the body, that's when, and the other one is surrendered, okay, it still exists, but it's surrendered. That's only when, that's the only thing that can happen, okay? That's what the purpose, so that struggle is going to, basically that they can't coexist, exactly. They cannot coexist, because the minute you take truth and you put 1% of lie, if not everyone accepts that the Torah is truth and that God is truth, then it doesn't exist. And you can't say that Torah views and that godliness is ruling over the world, okay? But so that's why that struggle exists, okay? So too in a body, the godly soul and the animal soul. You can't have the godly soul and the animal soul live one in the brain, one in the heart, and not struggle. They are fighting. They need to have complete control over the body to be able to express themselves. If not, they're going to struggle, because truth has to be 100% truth. There can't even be a drop of lie to it. An animal soul, we know, is klipa, which is the opposite of godliness, which hides the truth. So when something hides the truth, it can't coexist with the truth. Okay? So let's go back to the...
Why does the godly soul have two abodes?
Yeah, why does the godly soul have two homes? Okay, so the godly soul cannot just be brain. In order to be able to feel, you have to bring it down to the heart. So it has one place in the brain and one place in the heart. And that heart, those emotions in the heart, will only be awakened when you study, when you understand, when you use your chachma, bina, das, you use your three intellectual faculties to understand the greatness of God and his creations. Okay? Now let's move on to the parak. What does the Tanya call the body? It calls it a little city. Do you know why it calls it a little city? Okay, the Tanya calls the body a little city because it is compared to a city where two kings try to fight over it and control complete. Just like a city, you need a ruler to control it and run it for it to go for it to run smoothly. So too the body needs a king and a ruler to conquer it and to make it run smoothly. So the body is called the little city. It has two kings, the nefesh habamit and nefesh elokit, that fight over it. Okay. And the way that a king can gain complete sovereignty over it, there's 3 steps. Okay, we learned that last week, the 3 steps. So this, you can go to the next questions. What are the 3 steps a king does to gain complete sovereignty? I don't know if I'm saying it properly. Sovereignty. Oh, I knew I was saying it wrong. Sovereignty. Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, you know what? Some words I just don't know how to say. Sovereignty. Obviously, I knew there was something wrong with that word. Okay, so again, why is it important that one soul gains complete sovereignty over the body or over the city? Why is that important?
No, là on dit pourquoi il y a 2 steps. What are
but before, I want to understand, why is it important for one king to gain complete sovereignty?
Because you cannot coexist with this.
They can't coexist because one bit of falseness for a godly soul is 100% false. And the holiness is 100% truth. It cannot stand klipa, which hides the truth. So it needs to gain complete sovereignty over the body. How does it do it? 1, it needs the body to be responsive. The body's responsive by listening to it with your brain. You absorb, you understand, you listen to your godly soul. Okay? So being responsive is when you use your brain to be responsive. You try to understand, you try to listen to the silent voice. It's very silent. Godly souls are very silent. It doesn't like noise. It's very quiet and many times not heard. Okay? So you have to respond to it. Number 2, you have to surrender. Surrender, that means you have to want what this king, what this soul, godly soul wants. Okay? In order to surrender, you need to use your inner organs. Okay? I mean, It just represents the inner organs of the body that are completely surrendered, that don't have an opinion, and that just follow what the brains tell them to do. If they don't, then there's huge health problems, okay? So surrendering, to understand what surrendering is, completely doing and wanting what the king wants from you, okay?
Which part of the body?
So this is all the inner organs, like the heart, the liver, that have to follow. They have to be completely surrendered to the godly soul, because if not, there's going to be health problems, big health problems. And the last one is being a vehicle. Being a vehicle is different than being surrendered. Being a vehicle doesn't have to constantly want to do what the king does, but only follows instructions when given instructions. And that it represents the feet. The feet are the vehicle, and they go where you tell them to go when they're supposed to go. They're not constantly going. If they're constantly going, then there's a problem. Being surrendered is all the time. Being surrendered is something that you have to be constantly. But being a vehicle is only when there's someone riding that vehicle, when there's someone telling the feet to go somewhere. Okay? So this is how either kings gain complete sovereignty over the body. Okay? So these are the 3 steps. Now, ideally, we want the godly soul to gain complete sovereignty, because that's the only way the body is happy. But the animal soul could gain complete sovereignty like that too. Those are the 3 ways, okay? Mm-hmm. Why did Hashem give us the struggle of having the animal soul and godly in one body and not get along? So why did Hashem have to put those 2 things that are so opposite into one body?
To give us the freedom of choice.
To give us the freedom of choice, exactly. And also there's a story of the prostitute that was hired by the king for his son to test his morality. So that also gives another idea of why Hashem put us the animal soul inside of us, the nefesh abamit, the yetzer hara. He hired this prostitute because he wanted to test his son's morality. He knows that his son is going to be king one day, and he has to be very strong. And when he hired her, he said, you can't not in any way reveal to him who you are. But this prostitute still works for the king. And deep down inside, even if she's doing everything to seduce the prince, she still wants him to win so he can be strong and not fail this test. So to the nefesh habamit, even if it really works hard to seduce us to do whatever selfish desire we want and to seduce us to be egocentric, deep down it's miserable when it takes over the body. It's miserable when it gains control over you, because it really wants you to be strong and to be able to pass that test and to be able to have mind over matter, to have your mind controlling your heart. Okay? Mm-hmm. What is the only way that a person can resolve this conflict? So that is the what we discussed, that it's the godly, when the godly soul takes over the body, that's really the only way a person can resolve this conflict. Because when the animal soul takes over the body, it's still missing something. It's still not happy. And then over here, we spoke about Yaakov and Esav, the story that is the world, the souls of the world. The Jewish nation represents the godly soul, and the Esav, the nations that come from Esav, represent the animal soul, and the fight is constant. And each one want to control over the world. Esav was born first. That represents the godly soul that comes first, that expresses himself into a little baby. You can see how all they think about is their needs and their desires, and they're angry if you don't give them what they want. That represents the Esav, the animal soul. And then Yaakov came, and by bar and basment, so that's when their mind is able to grasp and to understand, and eventually able to express their godly soul. Okay, and the three next question explains how's the story of Esav and Yaakov a macrocosm of the battle between the two souls. So that, anybody want to say it? I want to hear from you guys. How is the story of Esav and Yaakov? I just said it, but you can repeat it.
It's comment on le dire en anglais?
You could say it in English, in French.
Bah, on vient de le dire, c'est comment il s'appelle? Esav, ça représente l'âme animale qui veut combler ses désirs un peu égoïstes, un peu égocentriques, comme des petits bébés quand ils n'ont pas ce qu'ils veulent, blablabla. Versus Yaakov, que c'est l'âme divine et que the only one that take over the body. So the battle is
constant.
It's constant.
It's constant. The battle is constant, and the battle is a good thing. And in a way, it's a blessing in disguise. As much as it could be hard to struggle, but to struggle in life is a blessing, because that's what makes us better people. That's what makes us feel accomplished, and that's what gives us the freedom of choice to choose when we struggle. Are we going to choose doing things honestly? Are we going to choose to do things for the godly, for holy purposes, or are we going to do it for ourselves? And every time we are able to take that struggle and use it for the right reasons, we are making a big, big difference and coming one step closer to the final redemption, when the struggle is going to be over, when there's going to be one side that's fully going to take over the world, which is godliness, which is revealed light, where the animal soul, where the Esav is going to be surrendered and become a vehicle. We're going to be able to take all our bodily and our selfish emotions and clothings, all the three clothings of klipa, and elevate it, because it's going to be completely surrendered. So we'll be able to elevate it and use it for godly purposes. So that answers the last question. And I just want to end off the course. I know it was a shorter course. I rushed through it. But the identity of body, this is a quote for you. I know you guys like quotes. The identity of a body is the soul. Okay, your body is the identity of the soul. That means everything your body does expresses the soul. The question is, what soul are you expressing? Are you listening to your soul? Are you in tune with the right soul, the godly soul? But no matter what, your body is the identity of the soul. And Dorit asked a very interesting question last week. She said, what happens to the animal soul when a person passes away? So the animal soul and the godly soul, they both come from God. Originally, their source are very holy. Even the animal soul, the source is very high. It's even higher than the animal, than the godly soul. When it comes down into this world, it's in a klipa. And that's when it the godliness of it is hidden, and it's expressed in a negative way. But when a person passes away, it detaches from the body, which is the klipa. The body is kind of like the klipa; it hides the soul, and it's holy. It goes back. When a person leaves,
It's one soul again, a godly one.
It's one soul. I don't know how. It's one soul is what? What does one soul mean? No, it's still the animal soul. It's still the godly soul. But once a person passes away, there's no bad in it. There's no bad in this animal soul. Because an animal soul originally without the body is a good thing. And that's what we want to get to. That's our whole purpose.
You mean?
No, not without the brain, without the body. It's in the blood. The animal soul is in the blood. Okay, so that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get a time where our animal soul is not going to be bad. It's going to be completely surrendered to the godly soul. And that's what our work is. And that's what the whole thing of Tanya is teaching us, to take our animal soul and to use it for godly reasons. To use it, to elevate all those emotions, all those clothing of klipa, and to make them surrendered to godliness and use it for good things. So I thought that was a beautiful saying. The identity of a body is the soul. Every person expresses their soul, and that's why we have to listen to ourselves. We have to be in tune with ourselves, and we have to understand that everyone has a different soul, and everyone expresses their soul differently.
Step by step, we're understanding why we're not even Benoni.
Yeah.
Because
It makes more sense.
We are Benoni, but